I'm Josh Cooperman, and this is a special edition of Convo by Design featuring all of the programming from the 2024 edition of the WestEdge Design Fair. These entries, as you know by now if you've been listening, are called WestEdge Wednesdays, and they're a programming concept that allows those of you who either didn't make it to the show or those who were there who wanted to hear it again to re-listen, re-watch these panels on Convo by Design. All of these programs were shared in the WestEdge Theater presented by Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home, a Best Buy company, on a stage designed by Julie Berline of JKB Home Design. An amazing space that served as a backdrop for our conversations. And over the next 10 weeks that we're in the midst of now, you are hearing talks, panels, and conversations from the show. When it comes to sustainability, in residential design and architecture, whether renovating or new build, the impression can be that you either have to do everything sustainably or not even start down that path. Increasingly, many consumers, clients, want to make a positive impact by making sustainable choices. How does one choose? Do you have to? And which choices make the most impact? This program was moderated by Deegan Penner, featuring Lori Dennis, CEO of Lori Dennis, Dan Brun of Dan Brun Architecture, Hannah Lee, creative director and designer at Hannah Lee Interiors, and Greg Roth of Carbon Shack Design. And it was presented by the USGBC California, and thanks to them for that. Enjoy. This year's presenting sponsor of the theater at the WestEdge Design Fair in 2024 was Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home, a Best Buy company, an amazing company, a partner of Convo by Design for some time now. And you've probably heard me talking about them on the show. But listen, as a busy professional designer, you know how important it is to find the right partnerships that allow you to specify the right products for every project. Professionals like you don't just have time to waste. So let me tell you about one of my partnerships, and that's with Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home. They're here to serve you with expert, knowledgeable, and non-commissioned professionals to help you specify the right product for all your projects. Non-commissioned. That's important. And listen, the cherry on top is they have all your favorite brands that you would want for all your projects, just none of the sales pressure. They give you good information so that you can make the right decision for your clients, because that's what great designers do. And if that's not enough, check out the show notes, click on the link for more information about their Pro Rewards program that every designer should not only know about, but be a part of. This year at the WestEdge Design Fair, Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home presented the theater, which was home to all of the panels and programs that you're going to hear here on WestEdge Wednesdays, like this one.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, it's working great. Thanks for being here. I want to acknowledge a very cute dog in the second row down there. Thanks for coming as well.
We're going to take questions.
Thanks for being here this morning for our panel on sustainable design. Does it have to be all or nothing? And our panelists include, from left to right here, Hannah Lee, creative director and designer, Hannah Lee Interiors, Dan Brun Architecture, Greg Roth, founder, Carbon Shack Design, but also Homefront Build, and Lori Dennis, CEO of Lori Dennis, Inc. Thanks for being here. So overall, the discussion is going to focus on when it comes to sustainability in residential design and architecture, whether renovating or new build. The impression can be that you either have to do everything sustainably or not even start down that path. Increasingly, many consumers and clients want to make a positive impact by making sustainable choices, but it can be overwhelming, especially with so much of the different technologies out there to choose from. How does one choose? Do you have to? And which choices make the most impact? I wanted to start by asking each panelist to sort of say hi and talk about what your specialty is when it comes to sustainability. We'll just go down the line.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Hannah, and my focus in sustainability is what clients can do as hiring interior designers and specializing in sourcing materials, finishes, furniture.
My name is Dan. I'm an architect, and I think my specialty is making sustainability disappear and just be a part of whatever we design and work for our clients and work for a global and local causes. So to us, it's not a subject that we typically discuss, but it's options that we bring to our clients that are inherent in the design already.
My name is Greg Roth. I'm senior interior designer at Carbon Shack, and we are a residential design build firm here in Los Angeles. So our sustainability practice is comprehensive from soup to nuts, construction, interiors, architecture. And we also have a showroom here in our Highland Park facility where we have a collection of furniture, lighting, tile, and fabrics that's all sustainably sourced and features biophilic and nature-inspired motifs.
Hi, I'm Lori Dennis. I have a book called Green Interior Design, which talks about all the things that everyone on the panel is interested in and specializes in. And in addition to the whole house approach, from landscape to mechanical systems to finishes, we really like to also impart the sustainable measures that you need to take once we leave. So being able to maintain the home and the exterior and garden in a sustainable way.
Thank you, everybody. I wanted to go back down, starting with Lori. If you could talk about one thing that you do and talk about some of the costs and the specifics involved.
So there's so much talk that we'll have today about what happens on the inside. I'd like to talk a little bit about what we do on the outside. One of the greatest captures of carbon is the ground and the microorganisms in the ground. So we really like to take an approach where the architecture, the interior, we're in Southern California, so we're able to do this. It's a little different in other climates, but the architecture, the interiors, and the gardens of our spaces are cohesive, and so we do a lot of edible gardens. I would think that's one of the things that makes us stand out, that we do a little different than everyone else. And there's such a joy in being able to maintain that in a sustainable manner. And then my favorite part of it is not going to a farmer's market and spending $7 on carrots and being able to just go out there in the morning and snip, snip, snip and put it in the pan. There's nothing more sustainable than that. And we carbon capture, so double points.
Can you get a little bit into the cost of doing an edible garden for your
So
client?
the
What clients
cost-
are spending?
The costs aren't going to be any different than doing a regular exterior landscaping. It could actually be less expensive, and then the money that you'll save and the time that you'll save, being able to go out there and get fresh and nutritious food and be in that environment is a net plus, I think.
Yeah, so I would say that one of the things that we often do, whether the clients are asking or not, on remodels in particular, is upgrading the insulation on a home. A lot of these older historic homes in Los Angeles have very little or sometimes zero insulation. So putting in insulation into a home is one way, even though it's not very sexy, it's one way that you can really make a huge impact on your energy costs. And for a home, let's say you're renovating or doing an addition in the $600,000 range, or $1 million, or $300,000, you're going to spend $4,000 to $5,000 on installation, which is a very, very small portion of the overall budget, and you're going to get a huge impact. So that's one thing I would say is really a great way to start.
Is that something people just don't think of in LA? Like, I need insulation like I would in the Northeast?
Yeah, and I think, if you sort of notice in the evenings, it gets pretty cold in this city. And if your home is not engineered and insulated to retain the heat of the day at nighttime, it's all lost.
And it saves on the cooling costs in summer as well.
And for us, it's usually maybe not as a direct product or a sustainable measure in that sense. That it's something that you could go pick up at a store, but it would be attuning the design towards natural light. And it's something that I think is really, really important, in not only in terms of energy consumption and energy use, it's making a healthy space. So for us, it's to design something that the windows are oriented in the proper direction so that they don't get the heat gain during the day, and then they have just ambient lighting during the later portions of the day. And that too is just inherently creating a building that isn't as doesn't consume as much That to me is the most important. It's not the reactionary of like, let's say, finding all of the most sustainable appliances and the most sustainable heating, air conditioning, and all of that. It's making sure that your building is actually not consuming.
Yeah, and to add to what everyone else has to say, in terms of sourcing furniture, furnishing your home, I think a great way to take the approach is moving away from what fast fashion is and thinking of slow fashion. We can also take that same approach in interior design, thinking of slow furnishing. Doing less, spending less, reupholstering what you have, even getting things on like Facebook Marketplace that are real wool, real authentic Persian rugs. They're not coming from a long, far away in terms of the transit for it to get here. That's going to save a lot of shipping costs. So budget-wise, it's going to be really friendly. But you're really getting real materials that isn't toxic and made new.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I mean, that's a really good point, and it's. I was on a panel, and it was in the Pacific Design Center, and it was subsidized by a furniture brand, and they're trying to sell us products, and they're trying to get us also to say, oh, consume, consume, consume. So one of the things that we like to say is, fine, if you're not going to go to such a great find and source something old and vintage, which is probably the best thing that you could do, and we have great sources here in Los Angeles. It's at least then if you're buying something new, then buy something that could last. And what I say in terms of design, make it timeless. So let's say the sofa would be in a neutral color, but the accessories around it can have something that maybe will be reupholstered or thrown away. So keep it as neutral as possible so that the items don't look like they're, oh, that's a 60s thing, that's a 70s thing, that's 2020.
Well, I would add to that there's a way to do that with new fabric that is also sensitive to the environment, which is to stick with natural fibers. And in particular, we're very excited about hemp fibers because it is a plant that requires very little water in its production and processing relative to cotton. I think it's 50 gallons of water for a pound of hemp versus 2,500 gallons for a pound of cotton. So if you are focused on, well, if your project requires that you reupholster, stick with fabrics that are good for the environment, and then you're also not adding to landfills in a detrimental way.
Yeah, I love to add to what Greg has to say, which is, if you think about other materials, plaster, bamboo, these are all materials that are going to be a lot more friendly if you do pursue using new products, new materials.
And my favorite slogan, I guess, is shop at home. So when you hire a design firm or an architecture firm and you're looking to do something new, whether it's a remodel or new construction, you're just all about what's new and what's the hot trend. But if you shop at home and have somebody come in who has a good eye, who can help you find a new life for the things that you already have, then there's zero. There's zero pollution. There's zero, you're just reusing what you already have, and you don't spend money. So it's a win-win. So try to shop at home first.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, Laura, you brought that up a couple of days ago when we chatted about, so much of design is pushed forward by people saying, I'm bored with this, or I want to get the latest trend. So is there anything else that you could speak to about bringing clients timeless design?
I want to add to what Lori has to say, which I get that all the time as an interior designer. Clients going, yeah, I'm so bored of sitting around with the same stuff. And I go, let's immediately rearrange and play some furniture Tetris here. And they'll be so excited at how the rearrangement have already done 50% of the job.
I think
Tetris. I love
it's
that.
amazing what pushing furniture in your room to a different position can do to the space. Really, I mean, I've been doing this since I was 8 years old in my room, in my house. But really, if you just even taking those paintings that are on that wall and maybe putting them there and pushing this table over, it makes a huge difference. So kind of in an ideal scenario, you go into a home and you don't buy any new furniture.
Staging goals.
You just move things around, refinish things, put great upholstery on something that's worn. And I mean, wouldn't that be amazing if you could just do a whole house without buying new pieces and it feels completely new?
So there, we just put ourselves all out of a job. All you have to do is go home.
No, you still need
Watch
us
a
to help you
staging
figure
video.
that out.
You're done. Goodbye.
I love to add to that, which is, I think other designers have asked me, well, how do you then charge if your job is to minimize your scope of work? And sometimes we do charge hourly. So in the hour, I'm going to help you do so much, just as much, maximize the time, but I'm not going to have to compromise on what I get compensated for the project.
Of when you're buying a lot of new stuff, yeah, you could, yeah.
Yes.
Build that in too. I wanted to ask the audience a little bit, like, how many people here understand how a heat pump works? Raise your hand. Whoa. 3, a few. So we were talking a little bit before we started about ways to reduce the energy costs in the home, whether it's heat pumps, solar, new things like people are talking about like geothermal. What if your clients say, this goes back to the all or nothing question that is the topic of the panel. If your clients say like, oh, I can only do one of these, what's going to give the most impact?
Actually, I think what he said. I think the installation. If you're remodeling a home, that is huge. Your building envelope is weak. You know, we've done a lot. Anna asked me if we've done like historic renovations. We've done a lot of like mid-century stuff, and you get into those, and there is zero insulation. The windows are single pane, and there's just no thought of any of these things. So that is probably your biggest bang for the buck. And it goes back to what I was saying about energy consumption, right? So making sure that once you then introduce the new heating elements, you're not using it, you know, and it's interesting, you know, when we think about these days like electric vehicles, right? And somebody says, oh my God, this car could go 300 miles, and you have a huge Cybertruck or a Rivian that weighs a ton. But nobody's talking about the efficiency of how to get that 300 miles. Is the battery huge? Is the energy that's being consumed a lot? Is the motor a problem? So if you make the building envelope secure, that's your first best bet. And if your budget is really tiny, then it's like lighting or something like that to just reduce the amount of watts and amps that are being used.
You said lighting?
Lighting.
I would say that there's a close second, which is improving the indoor air quality of your home. So if you have $5,000, let's say, and that's all you have for your budget of a remodel, let's hope you have more. But if you only have $5,000, you can do insulation, or a close second for me would be putting in an induction cooktop range. If you can get that blue flame out of your house and all of the carbon dioxide that it emits into the air of your home, you're not only going to be doing yourself and your family a huge favor, but it's great for the planet, right? So we are big advocates of going all electric in the kitchen and the home. And if you're able to do that, I think that is a great way to start.
What do some of the studies show about the effect of that, having that pollution in your house on your kids?
Yeah, so, well, not good. But if you, like the amount of energy that's lost in gas cooking is reduced by, I believe it's about 70%. With an induction cooktop, because the heat from the element goes directly into the pan rather than the flame, which is just in the open air. Some of it gets in the pan, but a lot of it goes into the air, including the carbon monoxide. So you kind of don't really want that crap in your house.
And then if you have a bigger budget, I would say you definitely want to install solar and gray water systems for irrigation. And that's specific to California. We have so much sun, it's free energy. So you can actually make money by doing that. Although I've never been able to do it. People say you can. I've never seen the bill go backwards. It's low, but not backwards. But the rainwater, the gray rainwater capture and gray water, where you're able to irrigate landscape, our costs of water and electricity are only going to continue to go up. So being able to invest in those two bigger projects, I think, is a lot of bang for buck, specifically in this region.
And actually, speaking of that, it's the reduction of energy consumption. So redoing the yard and the plants is a big one. I moved from a house, and the yard was about 3 times as big, and my water consumption was a third of that, just by choosing the right plants to start with. That could be a huge savings right there, and you're doing great for the planet.
But do you all know what gray water is? Does anyone not know what it is? Okay, for the person who doesn't know, it's just water that's coming out of the sink or the dishwasher that doesn't have human waste in it, or it just has the dishwasher, the sink, the washing machine. It gets filtered and it goes back in to irrigate the yard. So you get a 2-time use on the water.
Yeah, I love what you guys all have to say. And to add to that, you know, taking showers, I love taking baths, but it is one of the most non-sustainable thing we can do. So yeah, a lot of the water can, exactly what Lori mentioned, go to gray water, but also installing, like shower heads that are going to be reducing a lot more of the water output. Sometimes it's not as satisfying.
But they're pretty good now.
They're getting, they're
There's
getting
no
better.
more Seinfeld
Toilets,
hair.
faucets, all that.
Good, I think.
But I think my three biggest advice is smart home. I love a good smart home. Alexas, Echoes, they're so affordable. They're like $60 on Amazon, and you can hook all of your smart home systems. Even my like bedroom radiators that I use, instead of forced central air, which I don't need the entire house to be heated in the evening. So that also is on a timer. Everything I do when I get home, my lights turn on, they turn off at a certain time. Everything becomes really, really reduced and automated when you have a smart home system.
And then I just want to point out a really big one, a water filter for your home. Do you know how many plastic bottles? So we have these glass bottles in our house, and we just fill them up constantly with the filtered water and take them where we go. Everybody loves to drink them. We wash them and put them back in the fridge. And there's no plastic bottles, and you're not getting the BPA and the little microplastics when you're drinking. That's something that we all do all the time when we're out and about. So that one could be a very inexpensive filter for $100 under the sink, or a whole house system that could be $10,000. That's one we have, and boy, let me tell you, everybody likes drinking water at our house.
What are some of the costs? I'm bringing it back to cost again. What are some of the costs on doing a gray water system?
I don't know that, but I do know there's someone in the audience right there in the gray sweater who is a gray water expert. But I think that would be something that you would do. That wouldn't be a remodel situation. That would be like a new construction situation. And I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the cost would be so different if you're doing it from implementation.
You're doubling the plumbing. So it's quite considerable, right? So you have to collect the water, and so there's more pipes, but you're
it's
saving.
only from specific areas, no?
You could
I don't
speak
know.
to it. In my experience, when we implement it and we do it a lot, it hasn't been very affordable, right? It wouldn't be like you really want to do good for the planet to do something.
What
like
about
that.
versus the $500 water bill every month? How does that?
Again, if you change the plants, you've already done that. So just reduce the irrigation usage that you have, and you change the shower heads, you change a few things like that, you could get there pretty quickly.
Right.
Like one of the things that, in California and LA they're requiring is collection of rainwater to irrigate.
We just don't have that much rain, though,
That's
so
the
it's
point.
kind of nonsensical.
Yeah. And so they recently reduced that for ADUs and other specific locations, thank God, because quite honestly, the system cost to the savings was negligible. What they should have done is rip out your grass, rip out these plants, and let's go.
What did you have any kind of an idea what that double plumbing cost was?
It depends on the size of the house. I mean, it's
Like
all
per-
over. It depends on the size. It could be.
I do have to say, though, that I feel like the industry is shifting, fabrication is shifting, products are shifting. So some of these discussions, like the costs of the gray water or the costs of solar, which feel prohibitive for a lot of projects, they're all coming down because the technology is advancing and the marketplace is demanding it, and the fabricators and suppliers are meeting that demand. So some of this conversation at some point, hopefully, will be moot because the prices will really be more accessible.
That's also going to be very heavily influenced by local regulation.
Mm-hmm.
So
Those are changing too, which is
right.
good. Well, hopefully they'll keep changing.
Well, hopefully it's smart, because like the rainwater capture, for years we had to do this, and it rains 9 times a year.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like
I'll give you a great.
the dumbest.
I'll give you a great
investment.
example. We did a few houses on the beach. There's sand. There is no yard, and in fact, we still needed to do the rainwater collection. And in fact, the issue was that the rainwater collection was encroaching on our actual concrete for the foundations. we couldn't get away with it. We
'Cause
could.
those tanks are big.
There's no room, and
Yeah,
they're
they're
heavy.
huge.
And where is the rainwater going? There is no landscape. And so, you sometimes have to really question some of the codes of what they implement and what they're going to get you in the end.
Now, all of you, given your specialty in sustainability, would, I assume, attract maybe a different clientele than maybe some other designers and architects. But how many people that are coming to you are saying, like, I want to do good for the planet? And how much are people thinking about health and cost, or is it some mix of all of them?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of my clients come in acknowledgement of what their kids want and their children, and what their kids are learning in school is, hey, we got to be more sustainable. And then the parents adopt those values. And it's really beautiful to see bringing families together by helping them become more sustainable.
You can sell any project on health any day. We talked about this before.
And cost. Health and
Yeah.
cost.
If you tell somebody it's going to make them look better and feel better, the wallet comes out. Some people care about the environment, and nobody's going to say, I hate the environment. I wish it was more polluted. But that's sometimes a more difficult sale. And I would say, you asked the question, how many come? I think 10% come because they know we do that. And the other 90%, you push in as much as you can by you meet them where they are. So if they're into the health, if they're into the savings, if they're into because it's cool to show their neighbor, wherever you can get them, you get them. And the rest, you just, do your best.
Yeah, well, we have a sister company, Homefront Build, that is founded on historic restoration work. And so a lot of clients come to us because they have historic homes and they want to renovate, and they're not necessarily looking for sustainable practices. But just by definition, the work that we're doing, bringing these homes up to standard, that is imbuing them with sustainable practices and materials. So that's great. And we are also looking to, bring the ideas and educate people wherever we can. And sometimes that isn't about sustainability per se. It's about wellness. It's about cost. If you do this versus that, it's going to save you money. It might cost you a little bit more now, but down the line, it'll save you money. And people respond to that. People respond to the economics and what you're doing to make their home better for them and their families.
How many of your clients are putting in solar? Do we have any idea of how much of LA's energy is coming from solar in the residential market at this point? I know that California hit some big benchmark in the last year or so where on non-emergency days we could get all of our energy from
I think it's about
renewable,
half.
right?
About half.
I would say half too. And I would say that everybody that we talk to about the possibility of putting in solar wants to hear about it until we get to the price tag, and then half of them say, no, thank you, we'll look at that down the line. But I would say about 50% are interested in doing it.
I think what's interesting is a lot of homeowners who have are anticipating to sell their house end up implementing solar because they think their house value will go up.
Wait, hold on, let's let this plane go by.
Yeah.
You want to repeat that, please?
Yeah, of course. I'm always surprised how a lot of homeowners who do intend to sell their house down the line want to implement solar because it will increase their house value as well as new development more than, forever homes.
And what?
We've seen. I love solar technology, and we push for it. And I would say on the new builds, they all have it. Like if we start a house from scratch. And some of the conversation honestly gets started with harvesting energy, and let's say some of them are on remote lots where they want to start talking about a generator. And a generator will be an easy, quick turn to battery and solar, right? So there's that as well too, where there isn't a reliable source of electricity, and somebody will want to find an alternate. And some of the conversation also gets started with, you see them coming up with their electric vehicle, and you say, okay, well, everything is now electric, and you're gonna go back to cost. Either you're gonna pay for electricity for your whole house and all these appliances, or invest now and then be good later.
And I would say that one of the barriers in terms of solar is the cost of the batteries themselves. It's about as much as the panels in a lot of cases. And when we're able to reduce the cost, and I think that's a matter of technology, and chemistry, hopefully those costs will come down. When you have an electric car versus a gas-powered car, right there you're saving a tremendous amount. I think it's somewhere between 30 to 50 cents per mile for gas, and the cost for electric charging per mile is pennies. So right there you're saving in terms of the cost, let alone the benefits to the environment. So, again, that's a great way to get into people.
We should be in good shape in probably 12 to 24 months. Tesla is having a lot of success with their solar panel walls. They're working on the roof technology. They just hit a milestone where they were able to produce 1,000 units in their factory in one day. So if that company can do what they did with the electric car for solar, we're looking at a much more affordable, easy to use solution where we take from the sun.
From what I know, manufacturing is the hardest challenge that they face. It's not even the demand. And so if they sort out what they have to do in manufacturing, and with the current political landscape, that might benefit more production in the States.
What about, we hear a lot, of course, it's all happening with it's the hottest year on record this year. And at the same time, there are these solutions. I read a lot online all the time. I'm always seeing something about this little panel of 6 wind turbines that maybe someone designed that might be able to be on the side of a building could also bring energy. How much do you think that technology is gonna help us out? And do you get excited when you read about some new invention that might bring the cost down or add something?
I think we should all be excited when there's new technology that comes online that can, do good for the planet, right? Because we need that desperately. And so the more that is available to people, the better off I think we all are. And I also think, Dan, about the conversation we were having earlier, that old technologies are worth exploring too, right? Like passive energy, passive solar, those are important to consider as well. We don't always have to get the newest and the best.
I'm going to take a totally different stance, and I'm skeptical of a lot of the technologies. And I'll give you an example of why sustainability to me is deep in my ethos. I grew up in Tel Aviv, and energy costs are insane. If you think that what they are here, they're completely insane. And you have to think about, again, I'm coming back to that, how do you not use energy? That's the most important thing that we can do, the most important thing. Because also, we're talking about batteries and we're talking about production. That's not good for the environment. Let's be real about that as well, too. Where you shouldn't be quarrying, we shouldn't be relying on that. We should do much better. So, for example, as a kid, when I needed to take a shower, I had water, no problem. If I wanted hot water, I would have to get ready, turn on a little switch. On top of the house was basically a panel that's angled and painted black, facing towards the sun. On the top of that was a tank, and the panel had a pipe that went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, all painted black. The sun would hit that. Basically, you would open up a valve. That's all you did. The water would go down and get hot. You had about 10 minutes to take a shower. So that's your energy, that's your embodied energy, that's what you got to use, and that's it. You want to continue? There's no more water and it's cold. We have too much access to energy, and we're trying to find solutions to mask an inherent problem. So in our designs, it will be to start with going to get and making sure that we have the right insulation, the right building technologies. When we did houses on the beach, they have no air conditioning. And I get it, it's colder than anywhere else, but what we did is we talked about older technologies. You look at, I'll wait for this. You look at old Renaissance architecture or Saharan architecture in Arabia, and they designed everything around a courtyard and a fountain in the middle of the courtyard, and you get a cooling effect based on that with the air coming above that. So we designed a house on the beach that had a pond that's 18 inches deep, and that's it. The water comes running right through it. There is a stack of stairs, one over the other. On top of that is a skylight. And on top of that is a vent. And basically, as the air is coming through, it's naturally cooling the house. You don't rely on anything else. And those are the things that we should be doing, and as consumers we should be pushing instead of trying to find solutions that mask our inherent horrible consumption.
Well, the studies showing that. Thank you. Yeah, showing that efficiency can just lead to like more energy use, right?
For sure, but the biggest carbon capture in the entire world is going to be regenerative farming, and since that's on the agenda right now, going forward, at least for this country, and hopefully we can be a stalwart and an example to others. Not using as many pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, artificial enhancement, and going back to tried and true, just going back to grandma times, right? And using the stuff that works. So it just always comes back to common sense and rub up your sleeves, elbow grease, and do it the good old-fashioned way. New technologies are good. There are things that are going to work really well, but the biggest carbon capture in the world right now is going to be getting the good regenerative farming and getting our soil to capture carbon. So it's good times ahead. Very, very good things are about to happen, I believe.
Yeah. And I want to add, Laura, you mentioned having a sustainable garden. So for anyone that lives in apartment buildings, condos, and don't have access to, having your own garden, it's great to subscribe to farms that can deliver your meat, that are doing regenerative farming much more sustainably, and buying from like local farmers market. That's also great too, if you can have your own farm.
And eat less meat.
But if they are sourced from sustainable farms where they are grazing the cattle, it's actually really good for the land. So it is a good cause, and they do need more people to support them.
And be contextual. That's another thing that's really important. And I go back to the planting. We are living we don't have a lot of water here. And there's certain things to do, and it drives me crazy. I see in my neighborhood somebody who's watering their yard at 2 p.m. And it's such a no-no because the water is all being burnt and you're burning the plants inherently. So again, I think it's about practices. So when we design our buildings, it's about making them as passive as possible. And yes, we have technologies, but you shouldn't rely on them, right? Because when we study zero net energy, ZNE, what we see is that all the consultants, all the architects, all the engineers, they did it right. And then all of a sudden it's left to the consumer. And the consumer can be in a hospitality, it could be in a commercial building, it could be in a residential building. They come in and they said, you know what, I need the lights on right now. And they throw the whole equilibrium, just like our bodies are, into a whole flux and nothing works anymore, right? So not having to have, let's say, Alexa take down the shade, Alexa do this, just the architecture should have already thought about that and the landscape, right? So maybe the window is facing south because of the view, but then you could take advantage of a certain deciduous tree that then deals with the change of the seasons. There's a lot of things to be done, and those are the things that we should be demanding. And I understand that not a lot of them are inherent in the remodel thing, but if I could take away one thing from here, it would be to understand that we have to teach the next generation of consumer what they should be expecting from their home.
Well, I do want to say, Dan, that might be such a privilege to have. I think a lot of people don't have access to hiring architects or interior designers. And I think that's why I think Alexa Echo is a very affordable substitute if they don't have the resources to do so, as well as, the room you mentioned, like
I would
changing out the
question that.
windows.
I would question that, and that is, if you go into Europe, it's inherent in the culture and in the way that we consume. Okay, so I had a discussion with a publicist about something else altogether, and I said, if you keep pushing, I'll speak loudly, get over this. If we keep pushing for our magazines to celebrate celebrity homes instead of actual content of quality design, then you're going to keep having this perpetuated problem. So if I'm not going to do my job, let's say, and speak up today and say this is the stance of where we need to take it, then it's never going to be. And you're right, it is privileged, but it shouldn't be privileged. And the programs that, let's say, the California creates and Los Angeles creates should be more accessible, and they can be. But if the consumer doesn't change their mindset, that's not going to change. And the same thing happens with our electric cars, right? I'm going back and saying that. It's like nobody's talking about the efficiency of one car versus the next. So what if you could get to 300 miles? What did you do to get there? To your point about the gas, the blue flame. What did you do to get there? That's what we should be questioning. And one of the things that I would love to have happen is just like you have EPA saying, okay, this car had an efficiency of X, that appliance has an efficiency of Y. Why don't we have that for our homes when you're done? And you'd be like, okay, well, look at that. And then you could quantify. You could be like, you know what? Maybe I will spend that little bit of money to have that home that was designed bad. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a privilege, because somebody could design that model home or that model ADU that everybody looks to buy now. Why not have a model ADU that's super efficient that somebody could take?
But a modeled ADU sounds like a privilege to have, right?
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. There's a lot of people that are buying prefab model ADUs. There's a lot of that happening, a lot. And that's like a whole new product category that's not being scrutinized in this way.
So let's take it back to someone who is not in this budget. They live in an apartment, they're in a rent-controlled apartment, and they're really struggling. That's when it goes back to the thing that we really care about when we leave, is the maintenance of things. How are you cleaning and maintaining your space? Are you using toxic products? Are you cleaning your clothes with toxic products that are flowing into the environment? So even at the very bottom socioeconomic ability to invest in these things, it's decisions, and you can buy baking soda and vinegar at the 99-cent store, which is way cheaper than name brand products, and do things. So you can maintain your environment very affordably in a very sustainable way, which makes an impact every single day.
I think what all of this comes down to is education and information, right? So the more people know, the more they're able to do and adopt and bring to their daily practices. And I think it's great that people are here. I think it's great that we're talking about this. I also think that the conversation, which has been going on for a long time, is becoming more and more widespread, right? So more people know about these things. That's why they're demanding these things. That's why industry is providing the technology and the appliances and the practices on a wider level. So it's really about understanding what you can do and knowing what you don't know and finding out about those things and seeking the sources to educate yourself.
Are there some educational platforms that you guys turn to educate people in sustainability?
Well, I mean, we tried, in terms of our clients, we try to be the smartest person in the room on the sustainability practices. So, clients don't, like we were saying before, don't always come to us saying, I want this and that. But if we're able to say, actually, what you can do is put in a heat pump, and that's going to save you money, and it's going to save your energy costs. That's one way that we can do it. Platforms, yes, there are plenty of platforms. We are the founding members of the Los Angeles chapter of the Good Future Design Alliance, which is all about reducing waste in the construction and design industry. And it is an educational platform for training designers, for training the public about what is available, where they can source sustainably, et cetera. So there are many out there. That's just one of them.
Julie brought us all together here through the auspices of the USGBC, so that's a great big one.
Excellent.
That you can go take a look at and
Great
find
programming and education
I mean,
as well.
you can chat GPT if you're interested in, how can I do X, Y, Z, and
Although try not to do that too much because they use a ton of energy in producing their calculations.
It uses an average
Sparingly.
church, I think, uses 10% more energy because of the
None of us
AI
live in a
summaries
teepee.
now.
None of us live in a teepee. So
Although that wouldn't be the
so it's not going to come from the earth and go back to the earth. We're all using energy. We're all using resources. So just try to be conscientious. Try to do more with less. Try to consume less.
Build a courtyard home with a fountain in the center like the Romans did. Use ambient air.
High aspirations, people.
Do you feel like a lot of people have choice fatigue? Also, we've talked about we've hit on so many subjects today.
I don't know.
guess
Do you
it
guys
goes
have
back
choice
to-
fatigue?
A little bit. Yeah, I guess that goes back to keeping things simple. Then.
Yeah, I mean, there are worse things than having tons and tons of choices, right? I mean, I think it's a wealth of choices is not bad. Sorry if you're tired, but.
And I think tackling different sectors, like, hey, you know what, this week I'm going to figure out my composting. Next week, let's think about toilet paper. Just tackling one thing at a time will help digest that and allow you to have more time to filter through all the options.
And I think the biggest one that's easy is, we talked about shopping at home. Think about locally, right? So when I built my own house, I didn't go for all the certifications, right? So I didn't go for like LEED certification. I'll give you a great example. There is an amazing companies locally that fabricate things, and the embodied energy and the carbon that it takes to bring out, let's say, a LEED certified product out from Milwaukee or in Germany to bring it out to California, it sucks. When you could just go to Temecula, or you could go somewhere else locally and find something. So if you're ever fatigued by that question, just kind of think about, okay, well, where is this product coming from? How big is that box? That box tells you how much carbon it took to bring it locally. Just those are very simple questions.
You bring up two things for me. One is that, the flip side of being educated is then being able to require or demand the products that you want. So we have, as consumers, we have power to tell the manufacturers, to tell the vendors, to tell the stores where we shop, that you don't have what I want. What I want is something that is better for the earth. I'm going to go somewhere else unless you can get it for me, right? So that's one thing we have. The other thing is that the industry has an opportunity and responsibility to demand those things as well, and to make use of what is available, or to require or demand more of what isn't quite available. There's an amazing company here in the South Bay called Bifusion. They take plastics, any type of plastic from the land or from the sea, and they convert it into construction-grade blocks. They're beautiful because they're sort of Jackson Pollock-esque in their colors, but they actually can be used and they're certified in a lot of municipalities as a one-to-one alternative to concrete. Concrete is tremendously energy intensive. If this type of recycled product could be used wide scale throughout the industry, I mean, imagine what that does, right? It takes plastic that is trash, that fills our landfills, and puts it into buildings in an incredibly useful and efficient way. So support those types of businesses, demand that type of product.
Yeah. Real quick. What's the company called again?
It's called Bifusion.
Bifusion.
Their product is called BiBlocks, BLOCKS. And we have been using them working with them to make furniture out of those blocks as well. And when you cut those blocks and create plastic sawdust, send it back to them, and they put it into more blocks. So it's zero waste, circular. It's incredible.
There's another company that is very similar for a replacement of MDF, which is called Core, like Kore. And we use them now for a lot of the laminate doors, cabinets, and they're so durable, even more than MDF.
And there's another quick way, right? So think about yields of materials, right? So if you're doing a house and let's say you're remodeling your kitchen, your bathroom, and a few other areas, minimize the types of materials that you're using, and that will yield you much higher. First of all, it'll save you money too, and you will have more usage out of a material. One of the things that we like to do is find out, like, okay, here's a slab. A slab is X amount, X size. What are we going to use, and how are we going to use all those parts? Question that. Sometimes a backsplash that is 4 feet is great and it works, but sometimes, oh man, that's going to require a whole other slab. And the stone yard might not tell you that. They might not be shrewd enough to think about that, and you'll look at the cross and you'll be like, wow, now I'm spending $4,000 on stone, when you could have been spending half that if one area would have been cut into a different size. And the same thing goes if you're able to use that one material. That means that your kitchen, your garage, and all of those can be put into a technology which the stone yards have that automatically allocates all of that. That's a very easy solution.
Another cheat code I love to add to what you have to say is I call a lot of my fabricators, 4 or 5 of them, and I ask them, hey, did you recently finish a project and have a 4 by 6 foot scrap And then there you go. I got a free, not a free vanity top, but they'll give it to me for $300 instead of $4,000 at a stone yard.
Yeah, and when you have a little bit left over, you can make a beautiful side table out of it that you didn't even plan to, but you have that material. You pay $300 to have somebody fabricate it, you're done.
I was just given the cue that we're ready to go to questions now.
There's no more time?
I want the question from the dog.
Does the dog have a question? Oh, hi, sir. We got a question there.
Hold on.
Has to be on audio.
I'm curious what you guys think in terms of direct government enforcement and the role of government playing in sustainability. Do you think that's a much quicker way into what Dan was saying of the Eurocentric culture of everybody gets more sustainable and just forcing everybody to do certain things by government role? Or do you think it should be more gentle education from a bottom up of like free market, let everyone do what they want?
First of all, the government is us. We are the government, and we have the right to demand those things. So if the policies aren't working for you in terms of what's happening on the local level or any level, do something about it. You have the right to go where the decisions are being made and say, no, that's not working for me, do something else.
And the government doesn't always know best, hence the rainwater thing, you know? So we have to remember that. We are the government. We cannot let people nanny state. We have to take care of the problem and shout out when it's not working for us. I mean,
Did that
it's
answer
so
your
important.
question?
It's a push and a pull too, right? So you need to have a combination, I think, between it all.
Hi, you mentioned that insulation was one of the biggest areas to look at. Can you talk a little bit about like hay bale, using hay bales in construction, and how can we as consumers get that information?
That's a really good. That's Santa Fe. If you research in Santa Fe, they do a lot of that construction there. They're very expert at it. That's not something we really do so much here.
I have something
There's
to
some
add
of
to
it
that,
down
which
here.
is when I was trying to develop a house in Joshua Tree on my 10-acre land, the city actually didn't allow me to do that type of method because it was considered unconventional for
Again,
Airbnb usage.
Yeah, push back on the policies because you should be allowed to build buildings that are to code in terms of their durability if you can. So the first thing is to go to the experts, right? So find people who, your designers and your architects, who know who are able to help you. Even if they don't know, they will know who to ask. There is plenty of that happening in the Southwest, even in California. And it is a very good, I mean, it's an age-old way of constructing, right? And there's a reason for it, because those walls, which tend to be, 18 to 24 inches thick, are very thermally insulated. So they breathe, they're natural. So it's a great technology. You just have to find the right people who have experience, and we can talk later and I can help you.
Do we have another question? Oh, hi in the front.
Hi, my question is, so Thanksgiving's coming up, and I'll be around my family, and I would love to introduce them to being sustainable. What is the best form of entry for that? The first very basic thing to bring to maybe immigrant families and people like that who are very unaware of this type of thing.
Did you say immigrant?
Yeah, like immigrants coming to the U.S., and they're learning about this type of thing.
I mean, there are so many ways to do it on any level, but don't use plastic bags. Let's start there, right? Like get a bag that you can reuse and bring that with you when you go to the store, because every store that you go to, not every store, many stores that you go to, especially little shops, they're buying these bags because it's cheap and they have something to give the client. If you show up in that store with your own bag and say, I don't want to use that bag, I want to help save the planet, that's one way to do it, right? So on that level, on a daily practice, I think that's one little thing that you can do. And it's about those little incremental steps, find the little things that you can do, and then they add up. Save water, all those things.
I definitely struggle with the same thing. I wasn't born in the States, and my family definitely does not care about sustainability. So I think one great way to start is just acknowledging, hey, do you guys have different trash cans for recycling? And then teaching them, hey, this is actually how you can separate your recycling. That's always an easy grab.
That point brings me back to policy and government, like, make sure it's being recycled. Don't tell us we're doing recycling and then not do it. Send your plastics to Bifusion and make concrete replacement blocks.
And that's a big challenge because a lot of us don't recycle properly. If we have plastic tape on a cardboard box, they may not want to recycle that. And even scraps that are too small, they don't want to recycle that. So the better we are as individuals, learning how to recycle will make that more feasible on government level.
I don't know if the immigrants that you're talking about are wealthy immigrants, but if you're talking about people that are coming here that are trying to scrape their pennies together, you want to meet people where their pain point is, and so that will be a money situation. So if you're going to put a filter underneath your sink that's going to be a $79 to $119 layout, and you don't have to buy plastic bottles, you know, that adds up in 1 month. You paid for it, or 2 months. You paid for it. When you go to the store and you don't take the bag, that's 10 cents for every bag, right? I pay attention still to 10 cents. I guess that my grandma put that inside of my head, you know? So I like it. Yeah, no, thank you. I don't need any bags. So anything that they can do that's going to sit, you know, grow some tomatoes on the patio, like whatever they can do. And so immigrants are actually really primed to be sustainable warriors because they care about the bottom line, which is money, and they're not wasteful people generally.
Yeah, and like if you go to the frutero on the side, on the corner to buy a thing of fruit, bring your own container and see if it'll reduce the cost for you, right? Like, why not look at the very practical things that happen every day?
I'm trying to remind myself to do that when I go to my coffee shop, which gives me a certain 20 cents off if I have my own coffee mug with me. And it's just about changing my own habit too, and then being a model for
We can
for
start
other
a
people,
movement
too.
for people to bring their own containers to the fruteros and vendors on the streets.
Nice. If we don't have another question, I think we're at about 1 o'clock here. Oh, we do. Oh, hi.
Hi, so you guys have mentioned many alternative options or materials like hemp, etc. And I was wondering if you guys have heard or used, and what has your experience been with mycelium?
Oh my gosh, yes. Can I
Well,
answer?
that was the question, was your experience. You want to
We
repeat
love
the
mycelium.
question?
So
Repeat the question.
mycelium is a huge passion point for us, and we use mycelium motifs in a lot of our products. So we print it on fabrics, we carve wood furniture with it. So we're big advocates, and the reason why, obviously mycelium itself as the material is gaining use in production of fake leathers or faux leathers and vinyls and things. But mycelium are a crucially important aspect of the natural world. They connect all of the living plants under the earth. In the forest, it's the world. What do we call it? The
network?
It's the network that actually lets the plants communicate with one another and trade nutrients. So yes, we love mycelium, and we're not the only ones. And there's a growing development of that as a useful regenerative source for products. So thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for coming to hear our panel. And
Thank you to everyone who made this program so special. From this incredible group of creatives and influential design leaders, thank you, Megan, Troy, and the entire WestEdge team. Thank you to all those who exhibited at the show and all who came out for the fun, inspiration, and education. Please make sure you are subscribing to the podcast so you get every episode the moment it's published. And reach out if you're so inclined, Convo by Design at Outlook.com and Convo by Design with an X on Instagram. Thanks again for listening. Thank you again to Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home for sponsoring the WestEdge Theater. And thank you to Julie Berline of JKB Design for doing a stage that is incredibly memorable. Greatly appreciated. Thanks again for listening. Until next week, be well and take today first.